mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hey, tip the hat to you, sir. Doff the cap. Okay, so I'm gonna kick it over to actually no, back to us
Back to us.
because I got to see Stranger Things 2.
Boomerang.
Actually, Stranger Things season 2.
Is it a second season or like a sequel? That's what I'm hearing.
It's both actually.
Okay.
The way Stranger Things is set up, it's pretty much if you watch an entire season of Stranger Things, it's like one long ass movie.
Mhm.
The fact that they call a miniseries does the audience a disservice because you think, okay, a miniseries is gonna have episodes and episodes and episodes, and I can watch this and watch this, come back to it and watch this. Like, no, if you don't watch Stranger Things all the way through, it's gonna screw with your head.
It's like how Daredevil season 2 continues after season 1, or Game of Thrones. Less intricate than Game of Thrones, but more intricate than Daredevil.
Let's see, Mikey wasn't sleeping with his mother while also being molested by the father, and also killing all 3 of his friends, and then 11 didn't come back, but she's actually a dragon, and then
yeah.
Game of Thrones is screw. Oh, you would watch.
I'd watch that.
You watch
I'd watch that.
Game of Stranger Things. Stranger Thrones.
Stranger Thrones.
Stranger Thrones.
There we go.
All right, but no, Stranger Things 2 is the continuation of the story of Stranger Things, the mega hit, I'll call it.
It just
Netflix
seems so weird that
miniseries from
everyone's
last
just
year,
like
from 2016.
drooling over this. It's just like the Goonies.
Well, yeah, people.
You know what I mean?
Stranger Things was popular, man.
Like,
really
seriously.
friggin'. Wait,
Seriously.
actually 2016? Was it 2017?
No, it was 2016 when that came out.
Yeah, it was last year.
Okay, all right, but yeah, Stranger Things was immensely popular. I want to say it did blockbuster numbers for a Netflix series.
Which you'll never know because they never release their numbers.
Well, they don't, but the rave. Oh,
yeah. Well, typically Netflix never really produces anything worthwhile watching
don't say
for
that.
their own like homebrewed stuff. I mean, with a few little caveats here and there, but I mean like stuff like Sense8 was like, whatever. And it was a lot of things that were like, whatever. But then Stranger Things came out, and it was, oh, this is actually decent, and it's hitting all that nostalgia stuff. All that 80s nostalgia. It's right there.
It hits note for note. And, I mean, I think they do a good job of the... I think between Stranger Things and the new It movie that came out, Stephen King's It, I think that the 80s wave might be like back in effect. I thought it was kind of falling by the wayside after like games like Fallout Blood Dragon, movies like Super 8.
That was just the beginning.
They touched on these fads come in waves. You know, they rise and they fall. I thought this one was well in the fall territory, but Stranger Things I think is rocketed back.
Yep.
Which I'm okay with, dude. They did a great job. I thought this was a great homage to that era in time. I thought the set design was beautiful, was spot on. Nothing was like hammy. They weren't saying, "Oh, well, you know, check me out. I got my my Devo shirt and I'm wearing my hat. I've got my Dexys Midnight Runner overalls and I'm going to school." And
funny you should mention that because
you had a Devo hat.
Well, no, watching it felt like Stranger Things season 2 was more out 80s movies and TV shows that were made in the 80s.
Oh yeah, because you could definitely
like
see how much it's trying, and I get it. You know what I mean? They're really trying to cash in on that nostalgia.
Well, you can't really hold up Stranger Things against like Knight Rider and Fall Guy.
Because they picked the soundtrack for
the soundtrack was cool.
A bunch of the different episodes. It was like some really underground stuff I've never even heard of, but like clearly. It was 80s.
Well, they were paying attention, dude. And this, as for the plot itself, Stranger Things season 2, continues the storyline, but this takes place just under a year, like literally like two weeks under a year from the events of the first season, which you get to see the progression of Winona Ryder's relationship with Will, her long lost son from the earlier series. How the now somewhat social acceptance of his brother, her son, the older son, Jonathan, the older son, Jonathan, has played out in the school year. The relationship between Steve and I'm gonna look up the names. I want to say Natalie.
It's either Natalie or Nancy.
Well, Nancy, Mikey's sister.
Yeah. Mikey's sister.
Yeah, how that has progressed, and also what the hell happened to 11? 11's the superpowered girl from the first movie, and this one starts off with almost a red herring. For a long time I thought okay, this was just a thing they're thrown in to mess with us. But I really hope it would be the run of the new series because we're introduced right off the bat. This isn't a spoiler because it's literally the first scene.
It's the opening, yeah.
Yeah, we're introduced to another of the kids that were the numbered kids that were experimented on, like right off the bat. And I really hoped that this would be the story of, if not one of the other kids, several of the other kids. You know, we've seen what happened to 11. Now we'll show you number 8, number 6, number 13, number 2. You
that
know,
opening scene, yeah, I'm with you, because it felt like they were leaning towards like, hey, we're gonna steer this towards like an X-Men style.
Dude, I was jazzed. I was like, oh, they're doing a thing.
Yeah, it seemed like it was going in that direction. And later on, there's actually an episode where it pretty much feels like, are they setting up like an X-Men spin-off type of thing? Because it still feels like that for that particular
They might, but
episode.
you know what? It took long enough.
It took a while.
It took so long to get there.
Yeah.
But
so,
Adam, I heard some dissension from you a minute ago. You were
I mean, if it
not
went
a fan?
like the X-Men route where it was like just about these advanced kids, yeah, I don't think I would enjoy that. I like movies with children that are like going on adventures and kind of taking the adult role of finding stuff out. I like smart kids, you know what I mean, going through it. So I was really hoping it goes that way, opposed to like, oh, just following
it does,
sci-fi,
but I think
you know?
it does, but I think it does to the dismay of audience members like myself who saw promise in that, who saw that we've gotten 11's story. It was very touching. I mean, this season even ends, Johnny. I'm not to spoil things too much, but it ends on kind of a John Hughes note. And then they throw you back into Stranger Things. But the last full episode, I think, is pretty much like, it's Stranger Things by John Hughes.
Well,
and you'll see why when you get there.
The more realistic stuff. I mean, I embrace the sci-fi kind of out there bits of it.
I'm not opposed to it, but if Stranger Things is going to be both, give me enough of both.
Okay.
And as much as that sounds like a complaint, Stranger Things Season 2 delivered a lot more on that tip than Season 1 did. I was so upset at everyone who like really force-fed Stranger Things 1 down my throat. Because the claims were, this is an amazing show. Oh, God, so wonderful. The story's so intricate. It's so moving. It'll suck you in. And then they got the supernatural little girl and these lovable kids and the relationship between them and everything's really realistic in their dialogue.
I think
I'm like,
my problem.
wow, I got to check it out.
Definitely. Is everyone's just like, oh, my God. I'm like, it's good.
Well, it bored the crap out of me.
Can it be just good? It's so not amazing. It's not like life-changing. It's just like if it's ripping off everything in the 80s. The 80s weren't that great for movies. Let's be honest. You know what I mean?
Hey, wait a minute. You're right, but no era has been that great for movies. We can romanticize as we look back.
The 70s were great.
The 60s
movies.
were garbage for movies. Okay, have you ever actually sat through more than 3 blaxploitation movies that weren't?
I'm not talking about blaxploitation movies. I'm talking about early Scorsese, early Spielberg, all those guys. Yeah, the 70s were great.
Okay, you know, also while you had early Scorsese, early Spielberg, you also had mid-stage Weird Al.
Yeah, but
you had late stage. You had late stage Joe Sarno.
In the 70s, but I'm saying generally some of the best movies ever made were from that.
You, my friend, are a victim of your own rose-tinted glasses.
That is not true. Like, I watch these movies still. Like, I'm not like, I wasn't born in, you know, I didn't grow up in the 70s. There's not like I have this nostalgia attached to it.
You know what I feel like? Okay, here's the dichotomy for this show, ladies and gentlemen. This man...
You having bad taste and me having to correct you?
This man knows more about, like, you know, the intricacies of film and background stuff and directors than anyone I've ever met. The problem is, I know you've seen hundreds of movies. I feel you in life haven't seen half of the specifically bad movies that I've seen. Because you've seen tons of movies, but
So you're saying you've seen more bad movies than me? That makes you more pessimistic?
I'm aware of just how much crap exists.
Trust me, I'm aware too. I mean, and I like a lot of the bad stuff too. I don't know.
All right. Well, Stranger Things, surprisingly, in my opinion, I'll just say it now, is not one of those bad things. It does really cast kind of a positive light on the 80s, on the time period it takes place in. But I think that's just to get the story moving into the world of these kids. At the crux of it, Stranger Things is the story of Mike, Will, Dustin, and I forget the brother's name. I want to say Tony.
Of course you forgot.
Well, I forgot the black guy. I forget you, man. What you talking about? Well, anyways, and they introduce a new character, so now there's a new girl in the mix. And how will this play out when Eleven's reintroduced what's gonna go down.
Is she gonna be jealous?
Well, I don't
Is
know,
that a
man.
thing?
We'll,
No,
we'll have
she's
to
not
wait and
jealous.
see.
Yeah.
We'll have to
Oh,
wait
who?
and see.
Well, it's
but-
We don't
interesting.
know.
Okay, so
Never mind.
apparently Johnny's just like letting cats out of bags here.
Yeah. See, I like the '80s tone too because it's like if you set a movie now and all the kids are on their cell phones and like smarter than everybody else and like really smug, that's horrible.
I don't
You
know.
know what I
It feels
mean?
like
So
there's
I think-
It's too Nickelodeon.
Right.
Like Nickelodeon now, I watch it and I'm like, these aren't children. How are they? Oh, wait a
Right.
minute. No, yes they are. Because my brother's had a cell phone since I think he was in middle school.
But it's like they're
I had
writing
to
they're writing
beg my mother
dialogue
for
for
a
children.
pager, and even then, I didn't get one until college. So
Yeah, but they're writing dialogue like adults are writing dialogue for children that sound just like adults.
true,
they
you know
true.
what I
That's the
mean?
problem. But
behave.
these are kids.
Yeah, they still behave like kids. They still
Right. No, I'm not
their-
talking about
their
this in
intellect-
particular. I'm like most bad
Oh,
movies
absolutely.
about kids.
They-
They're like because these kids are talking like really articulate adults. It's like
Yeah.
that's just not
Yeah.
how kids.
Yeah, let's sit and have a chat about
respond.
dialectical materialism. Like,
Well,
no,
their
this is
their intelligence is
7-year-old.
definitely limited. Like they are, above the average sort of
It's-
typical
it's-
kid at their
it's
age.
And I
retained
like how
within-
that
still
makes
within
them
the realm, yeah.
outcasts
Yeah, it's
too.
retained
That makes
within
them
due
bullied because they're
bounds
smarter. That's
of
a
their
truism.
world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like the biggest achievement that they know of is the high score on Dig Dug.
Dig Dug, yeah. yeah.
Playing what's that game? Dynasty Warriors? Not
Oh
Dynasty
no,
Warriors,
Dragon's
Quest.
Lair.
Dig Dug is
Lair.
such an
Dragon's
addictive
Lair.
game.
They
too.
play Dragon's Lair. You see it, and it's like a big thing to them. These are still kids. I like that. I like the introduction of the new girl, and she has an interesting story that they don't
Max.
broach. Her name is Max. They don't broach it just yet. Oh, also the acting from these kids is phenomenal.
Top notch.
Like,
Absolutely.
Like this isn't like your I won't say your standard. We've seen a lot of good acting from kids recently, so I think.
And back
that
then
crappy,
too, in the '80s, like Corey Feldman, he was great.
Yes,
as child actor.
yes, he was genius. Snubbed for the Oscars so many times.
Oh
like
man, like come
every-
on, he was super popular. He was in a lot of those
I
'80s
know,
movies
I know.
that
I'm
were really
thinking
good.
about movies like Heavyweights and stuff. Movies like Hook, where you get a couple good performances amidst a lot of crappy performances. These are kids; you can only expect so much from them. But these children now are doing really amazing things.
They
really interesting
outperform.
things. Very much so.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Every
they
single
make
one
it
of
out
them
of that.
had their own, at least one cry scene. Every single one. At will,
Mhm.
they would just go boom, tears streaking down the face. Every single one of them, they had their own moment. Some of them, like 5 times, they would cry. It was like
Yeah.
every episode. All right, who's crying now? Oh, they're crying. They're crying. They're
Yeah.
crying.
And
Come on, you pussy.
For a while, I thought. You gonna sit at the kids? Adam, no chill, no chill. No, what I would say is, I thought for a while, yeah, I could see why they kind of wrote Will out of the first season because this little kid was hemming it up. But then once he does dramatic scenes, they have their strengths and weaknesses. His is general interaction, but when he had to do some dramatic stuff, when you had to worry about him, dude, this kid, there's no way he walked away. He walked away from this like not traumatized.
Yeah.
I imagine they pulled like a full Linda Blair in The Exorcist on this kid because he's gonna walk away with scars. But it was Linda Blair. Have you ever seen The Exorcist?
Yeah,
Exorcist, yeah,
she
yeah.
has
Yeah,
scars.
that movie messed her up, man. They had to masturbate with a crucifix on that side. Did you watch it?
Yeah, of course. That's like
yeah,
one of my favorites.
All right, well, we'll talk after the show, man. I gotta hip you to some Hollywood history. But Stranger Things 2, dude, I'm impressed because I'm somebody who did not like the first season. I thought it was boring. I thought it was drawn out and overhyped. I thought it was way too into itself when we don't know these characters enough to care about them to the depth that they expect us to. This season, I think is an exponential jump in quality. They got to the action a lot faster. A lot of the supernatural stuff and the danger that we were promised really manifested itself, and I think that's a strong point to make when trying to sell somebody on Stranger Things season 2. The acting from the kids was beautiful. They introduced new characters who really take effect. Paul Reiser, I can't get past Paul Reiser from as Burke in Aliens, the second Alien movie, and he, I guess, knows that. Because he's owning that to a T in this movie, in this series, and he's perfect for it. You wouldn't expect Paul Reiser. He's a funny guy, right? Mad about you? No, this guy is you want to hate him, and they cast him so perfectly in this. everyone has a more expanded role. We get more from Winona, believe it or not, more from Winona Ryder, but we also get more from the chief. We get more from each of the kids. Each one of them has their own individual storyline they're following and their own individual conflicts, which I think was kind of lacking in the first season. It was mostly Mikey's show.
It was, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And this one we get a lot more from all of them. Dude,
Actually, Mikey takes a little bit of a backseat compared
Yes,
to
he
the
does.
others, which is good.
Mhm.
It was great. I mean, all the other ones, I
Johnny
felt
hated
just the same.
Mikey.
I mean, it felt too like hokey, ham-fisted, especially with his relationship with 11. But on the first season, but this season they definitely remedied that. I love the relationship between, sort of like the mini feud between Destin and the other friend that we can't remember.
I'm gonna look
the
at
name.
his name because he's earned his props.
Yeah, and they were fighting over another new character, and it was that little bickery was just great because it is what kids, friends would do. It was just well done, well acted out. Lucas.
Well, I don't know where I got Tony from, but they introduced new characters as we mentioned, not just Maxine. There's rivals to Steve.
Yeah.
There's different kids. We also find out what the hell happened to Barb. It approaches violence in the home. It approaches keeping secrets from each other and not trusting friends. They introduced Sean Austin, and we like Sean Austin. Sean Austin, he was the kid he was Mikey in Goonies. He was the lead kid in Toy Soldiers. He's Samwise Gamgee in the Lord of the Rings.
He was in Encino Man, dude.
Yeah.
He was in Encino Man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
I love how, wait, was it Encino Man? That was the thing that jogged it for you?
Yep.
I mentioned these great movies, but Encino
Samwise
Man.
got me.
Oh,
Samwise
yeah, that
got me.
guy. Samwise. Okay, all right.
Every time I see him, I'm like, oh man, I need to give him like elven bread or something.
Well, he's in Stranger Things. Great work all around.
As
dude.
Bob.
As Bob.
I can't forget that name, Bob.
I'm so surprised that I'm so enamored with this. Because as much as I was like I really felt cheated by Stranger Things season 1.
Yep.
I highly recommend Stranger Things season 2. Thumbs up, like totally.
Yeah, there are problems with it.
Just go ahead, lay down the hate, Johnny. What do you got?
All right, it's not too bad with the hate, but I felt like everyone knew that Netflix was spending a significantly bigger budget on this, and it felt like the CG work, especially with the big lumbering thing that is not a secret. It was in the teasers and all that. The big tentacle
spidery
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely hate the design of it.
This guy with the hatred over here.
It's just
No,
it's
I'm kidding.
the way it's covered in a particular texture, which is not that voluminous smoky cloud that's around it. That to me screams they went cheap on the CGI work. And instead of actually
you think so? Because when we saw those dogs, the dog-like spider-mouth creatures,
those
things
look good. Those look good. Yeah,
those look. I thought they did good work on the CG there. The only thing I think that may have taken out of it, which is not a spoiler to say, but the audience won't know what I'm talking about until you see it. The animation on Dart.
Yes.
I thought animation on Little Dart looked kind of cheap when they did close-up scenes with Dart and Dustin.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
it did. So they went a little cheap as far as I feel like they went a little cheap on some of the CGI work, especially the big giant monster, which is a huge letdown because I was expecting something very elaborate.
You've got high expectations for these weird things. You want practical effect. You want them to actually mutate a giant squid and then have it on land to kill these children. That's what you want. This was
one of their big budget movies, or big budget productions, and I expected a big budget production.
You know where the budget went? The budget went to making everything else look as authentic 80s as it did.
It did, and in the acting. So I will give it that. I know where the budget went. It went in the acting and on the set and making everything look so 80s.
Because you don't get Paul Reiser a cheap kids. I'm just
to the detriment. The other thing I did not like, and this is really nitpicking, is that there was way too much product placement.
I really thought you were going to say way too much porn for a second.
Way too much product
placement. I think that stood to hammer home when this takes place. You're talking about the games and stuff, right?
No, I'm talking about Dr. Pepper, the scene with Bob and
he
Will's
worked at
mother.
Radio Shack. Radio Shack is not exactly a thriving business now.
Dr. Pepper. Right, they're
Dr.
sitting
Pepper.
on this bench, and it was the cut was a close up on both their faces. They're having this dialogue together, and all of a sudden, for the sake of showing off Dr. Pepper, the cut backs out to a bigger picture so you can see them sitting on the bench, and he cracks open. He's holding it perfectly in between the two of them,
Oh,
the Dr.
brother.
Pepper in his hand, and he very slowly cracks it open. And he has like the smile and this It looked like a commercial. I kid you not. I kid you not. Product placement.
Okay, I guess that could be seen if you're really focusing on those things. And all I'm getting is that Johnny was really thirsty while watching this.
That and Mrs.
What
Buttersworth.
Okay, that one.
Everywhere.
Okay, you're right, but I didn't think of that as product placement. I just thought of that as a missed opportunity to make that someone's having lascivious thoughts about Mrs. Butterworth and the shape of the bottle gag. Because I mean, the whole thing was these kids were horny the whole. Well, Dustin and Lucas, you could smell the pheromones coming off these two.
Oh, yeah.
Like they were just puberty was around the corner for these two, and they were just anyways. Okay, you're right. Those are I guess those are legitimate. I guess
Right.
when you talk about the product placement, it can take you out of the story if you're paying attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
I myself was focusing on everything else. Like I loved that they introduced another one of these children. I loved that we actually got to see a life outside of Eleven's singular experience with how do you grow up with powers. And then when they interacted, that was interesting too. It took kind of a stereotypical, and I mean stereotypical story-wise note, trope heavy. Note with that part of the story, but I understand why when they actually got back to the main story. So I can't hate on that because it's like it's something to have a gripe about, but when you can actually see the motivation, understand the motivation, then it seems more of like a nitpick that you can overlook.
Yeah, and overall, I do recommend it. I do give it a thumbs up. It's a little slow to start, but it really starts to ramp up, and the action does pick up and gets really interesting and elaborate, and it goes out there and it goes to the places that you want it